Oh,
10,000
nice.
downloads we're seeing. It's crazy.
Wow, that's awesome. Congratulations, Mike. Well, you're so good at this too. You're a
Thanks,
natural.
man. Yeah, I'm having a lot of fun. People are like, "Where do you get your questions?" I'm like, these are just spontaneous questions I've always want to ask people. So just stay curious. I think that's a superpower in today's world, being curious.
Brother, I couldn't agree more. And that's something I really want to teach my son. It's just to be curious too.
Yeah. And let's get into jujitsu in a second. All right. We got to talk
Oh, I
about
can't
that.
wait.
I have a lot to update you on that front.
Oh, nice. I can't wait.
So we're gonna hit record. It's gonna take a few seconds to connect, and then three, two. Welcome to another episode of Million Dollar Stories, where we get to interview authors from all over the world. You know, I love talking to authors because they have the courage to take their thoughts, their stories, their lessons, put it down in a book, and share it with the many, ultimately changing their legacy and destiny in the process. And if you want to write a book out there as an entrepreneur, I highly recommend it because the self awareness aspect, the clarity, but also the opportunities that come your way with speaking gigs and courses and masterminds and podcasts. If you need help with that, check out dreamstarterspublishing.com. We can help you out with wherever you're at in the process. And if you already have a book that's done, you want to use it to generate leads for your business, check out bookmarketingcrm.com. Now, I get to work with many entrepreneurs all over the map. And this next guest was somebody that we've been talking back and forth, I guess, for a couple months, maybe a couple years. And we finally got to work together with this book that he put out called The Forgotten Asset Class. And we're going to get into it in a little bit. But this dude, we share a lot in common. The only difference is I think he's way taller than me. And if he's usually, I would say, way taller than me and way better looking than me. So those are the only two things I think is what stands out. But he's a jujitsu guy. He's one of the guys that put it in my ear to get into the game of jujitsu, the sport of jujitsu. And I like this guy's content. He shares our politics when it comes to our company's politics and my politics. So it's going to be fun to talk to him. I want to read off a little bit from his summary from the book. You can't have a good life without your health. You can't be healthy if you are overworked or stressed about money. This book will help you free up your time, add a second revenue stream, reduce your financial stress, and boost your asset portfolio. In a world of higher inflation, real estate is a tremendous asset for wealth preservation, not just cash flow. Ultimately, your goal should be building up enough real estate income to live off. And it is an honor to have the author of The Forgotten Asset Class, Low Risk, High Reward Real Estate Investing, the one and only Lawrence Dunning. Thanks so much for being here, man.
Mike, what a pleasure. And thank you so much, man. My son is 3.5, and I had the idea of this book in my head a few months before he was born. And I was like, okay, I can just bang this out in a few weeks. I've got it all there. I just need to get the time. And then my son comes a month early, so I don't get it done. And then the year or two go by, and I'm in a daze. And it was really you that helped me just get it finished. And you've been so awesome with the publishing and the promotion. So I really appreciate you, brother. Thank you so much for everything, Mike. And it's such a pleasure. We're gonna have a great conversation today.
Yeah, dude, we hit it off right away, and we share a lot of the same sentiments on life in general. But when it comes to financial freedom, I mean, if you can't be free unless you are financially free, right? Everybody has their viewpoints on, spirituality, faith, and physicality, but you need to get your money right. I've always said that. Once I got my money right, I was off to the races. So, was that the genesis of this book?
Yeah, exactly, Mike. And here's the thing, you and I, we're entrepreneurs who work for ourselves and we work hard, but we love what we do. And I think that the problem that a lot of people have is not that they don't want to work hard, it's that they're working, doing something you hate. And I've had that feeling where you literally just feel like you're just trading in parts of your life. And a lot of times it's your youth, that the best parts of your life just to survive, to pay the bills. It's an awful feeling. And I was actually very lucky. My dad gave me a sense of the importance of saving today for a better tomorrow in terms of financially. So I had jobs since I was 12 years old doing things either for him or just for like, I worked in the local store, I delivered newspapers, all the kind of things that kids back in the 80s did. And he was telling me early on as a teenager, he's like, listen, you can spend this now, you earned it, it's your money. But if you look at the British stock market at the time, it was kind of it was in an up cycle. It was a very, very bullish. So he's like, if you invest and you buy some of these companies and you wait a year or two, you're probably going to have more money. So I remember even in college, I had jobs in the summer in college too. But I remember when before I even graduated college, my older brother wanted to take a trip to Russia. he had this program. He wanted to teach English in Russia. He met this Russian girl he was in love with. He wanted to go there, but he had to spend a few thousand on tickets and things like that. And he was always of the approach is I'm just going to enjoy life and be broke. But then he came to me and he's like, "Hey, do you mind giving me a couple of £1,000 so I can get my ticket so I can go to this program?" So I realized at an early age that money is freedom. And I think that's the thing is I don't want wealth because I think it's going to give me happiness. I want wealth so it's going to take away my financial problems so I can do all the things to make me happy. And I think that's a really important distinction because if you think that wealth will make you happy, you can spend the best decades of your life working at, like a law firm with these crazy hours where you give up your health and your friendships and you have a shitty marriage. And all you do is think, oh, if I can just get to this next level, if I can become partner, then that money I'm going to get is going to solve all my problems. And then you realize maybe in your mid 50s, you think, shit, that's why people have midlife crises because you've been spending decades climbing the wrong mountain. And so when I was in my 20s, I did very well trading and I was actually became a millionaire before I was 30. And it was so great because I realized that this money is great, but it doesn't in itself gives me happiness. But what it does is it let me follow my dream, and that was to be a professional fighter and do martial arts full time and just see how far I could take it. So that was a really cool experiment. But the one mistake, and I talk about this in the book, is the one mistake I made is I didn't know about real estate investing, and I was heavily invested through the stock market collapse in 2009. In very volatile stocks. I invested in a couple of startups that went under. I lost everything. And the other thing is I just kept living like I was a millionaire when I didn't have any income coming in, very little income. So I think the thing I love about real estate is when you buy a property, every month you're paying off with the tenants, you're paying off your loan. But part of that loan is some of it's interest, but part of it's principal. So if you have a couple of properties, you're paying thousands of dollars a month in principal without even realizing it. So if I'd had that knowledge back when I was wealthy and I'd put a few, a million or so into real estate assets, I'd be, completely set right now. I'd be absolutely loaded. So it was a really good lesson if you look at the uber wealthy in the US, almost all of them have vast amounts of real estate holdings. But the reason I call the book the forgotten asset class is because when you take an MBA course, they don't teach you about real estate because real estate is very different. MBA is about stocks, bonds, and cash and different ratios and the Sharpe ratio and all these different ways of changing your portfolio as you get older to have less exposure to the risk of the stock market. It doesn't touch. I didn't take one class on real estate. I knew nothing about real estate investing, from my education. So it's just that's the message I want to promote I think you can make money in a bunch of different ways. You can make money in, old cars. You can make money in the Rolex secondhand Rolex market. You can make money in crypto. There's all these different ways you can make money in stocks. There's all these different ways to make money, but real estate is just a tried and true way with certain advantages the other assets don't have. And the main message I want to give is just to spread the word that it's an asset class we should think about. And it's been so cool. I got a text today from my neighbor's wife's my neighbor's wife saying that her parents, instead of selling the house, they decided to keep it and rent it because she got them a copy of the book. And I was like, man, that's so cool. Even to write the book, Mike, for that one story is worth it, right? Just trying to spread a positive message and just try and give some education to people.
Yeah, it's like you have no idea who you're impacting when you write a book, right? There are people who know you. Maybe they don't know everything you teach, but they know you. They pick up the book and they say, "Wow, I had no idea that there was this many benefits to real estate, and whether it's the tax depreciation, the income, the net worth, the ability to borrow against it, the leverage that you gain from it, the credit that you obtain, it's unbelievable." And I'm in self-storage, but I'm able to see, you almost have the mentality where you set it and forget it. And
Yes.
I love being able to build my business in the book publishing world, book marketing world, having my money work for me there, but also having individual I guess portfolios that I invest in and I kind of just let other people run for me. And like you said, real estate is so tried and true that, you know, they're not making any more ground, right? No more
Yes.
you could basically keep building new stuff, but it's going to just keep rising in costs. And so therefore, if you invest right and if you invest early, time becomes an absolute asset and you can leverage that now and forever. And you can increase your cash flow and your net worth. And you need to do both. There's slow money, there's medium money, and there's fast money. Real estate satisfies all three. So yeah, that's why I believe in it, man. And that's why I love the message. But you do talk about being a professional fighter. I want to touch on this. And you said I think at 30 years old, right? So at 30,
Yeah.
you pursued MMA professionally. Why'd you do that? What got you into it? And I'm assuming there are many people who say that at some point, but they just never do it. And I commend you for going after it wholeheartedly. So, what got you into that world?
Oh, thank you, brother. So I started martial arts when I was growing up watching the Jean-Claude Van Damme movies. I was like, if you want to be a force of nature for good, I realized early on you have to be powerful and strong. So I was never, so some people get into martial arts because they want to be a bully. For me, it was all about if I want to do great things, you have to be strong to, look at 2020. We had a lot of weak people that were making these crazy rules, and the strong people were like, this is asinine, So I realized early on that martial arts could be was something I was very interested in. So I started as a teen, and then I got really into it in college. And I remember I graduated and I got this job at a trading firm. And I saw these young guys making money. And I said, hey, listen, they wanted me to start in 2 weeks. I said, just can you give me 6 weeks? I'll start a month later. And I went to Thailand and I trained professionally for a month in this Thai boxing gym, training 3 hours in the morning, 3 hours at night. And I just loved it. I loved it. It was almost like meditation. It was so hard physically, but it was so good for my mind mentally. And so I remember having this dream, like, listen, I'm going to work really hard in my 20s. I'm going to make money and then I'm going to take a sabbatical at some point. I want to come back to Thailand and do some professional Thai boxing fights. Then I start going to Chicago and I got really into jiu-jitsu and I won the Chicago Golden Gloves and I'm doing all this amateur stuff, but I had to do it. I had a physical job. I'm standing in the trading pit screaming for 8 hours a day, trying to make money, listening to 20 people at the same time. It's a very physical, it's like they call it white collar work, blue collar pay. And then I'll never forget, I was just turning 30 and I never realized how much money I had because it was just accruing in my trading account. I had a very simple life. I would trade. I had a couple of girlfriends, over the years. I like to travel occasionally, but every night that I was in town, it was the same thing. It was get up, work, take a nap, go to the gym, train a few hours, come home, have dinner, relax for an hour, go to sleep. Same thing. Just very, very simple life. I live like a monk. And I realized I was like, man, I've got all this money. I've got a lifetime to make money, but I have a very small athletic window. And I remember my best friend on the trading floor said, Lawrence, you crazy? You'll never give up this life. You work for yourself, you're making money trading, you got these different girlfriends, you're taking trips. Like your life is so good, you'll never give that up to be a fighter. And I remember thinking, I'll show you, brother. I'll show you. So I gave it all up. I gave my company away, which is a terrible financial decision. I should have kept an ownership interest because it was very profitable. But I just gave it away. It was so mentally taxing. And I just said, I'm going to see how far I can take fighting. And I ended up having one amateur, 9 pro fights. I did a bunch of cool things, like I run an ultra marathon on my 35th birthday, a 35-mile race. I did a bunch of cool things. I did dozens of jiu-jitsu tournaments. I traveled the world competing, and it was such a great time. But the whole time because it was so encompassing. I'm an all or nothing kind of guy, and that's again what we talked about. Is if I had been a bit more savvy with my money, I didn't realize at the time that, Mike, it's such a different skill to make money as it is to keep money. They're two very, very different skills. And
Yep.
there's a wonderful book called Mistakes Millionaires Make, I think it's called. And it's all these short stories about these people that they built a company to $100 million and then they lost everything. And then at the low point, their wife left them and took their 2 kids away. And just these just awful, awful stories. I remember my friend bought that to me for me to make me feel better when I'd made some financial mistakes. And it's a really good reminder that they're two very different skills. You can be great at a career that makes you money, but you've seen how crazy the world is. We were talking about AI before we started recording. Like the job that I did, the trading floor, that no longer existed. When I was fighting, I thought at the back of my head, I was like, when I'm done with this, I can just walk back on the trading floor and keep making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. I was really good at what I did, but I didn't realize that in the meantime, those few years, the high frequency traders came in, the market changed, these big companies took over, and the small trading groups didn't exist. So that's another great lesson. What I say with the real estate is, I always advise people, listen, don't go unless you want to, but real estate is another revenue stream. And the average millionaire has 7 different revenue streams. So you want to keep your day job, but you never know. Like real estate is just adding another revenue stream to what you already have. And in the long term, it does very well. But it's not going to make you a millionaire overnight. That's going to be investing in a shit coin that might go to zero and you lose everything. So you take the volatility out, and it's just a very good way, tried and true over time. Nothing has worked better to make more millionaires than real estate because you have the leverage. The main thing is the stock market goes up on average the last century, something like 10, 12% a year. Real estate, even if it went up half that, you're going to make a lot more because most people buy with 25% down. So you have the power of leverage. But for people like you and I, Mike, that work hard, you also have the fact that we're paying a lot of taxes. So you have all the tax benefits, the depreciation. So I have wealthy people that want to buy properties, especially with the interest rates 8% right now when we're recording, where they're going to be zero cash flow. They're just going to break even. But for them, they're going to save so much money on their back end because they show a lot of income when they do their taxes. So it's just that these are all great lessons I learned. But the martial art years, I have a picture in my office of one of my fights where I'm sitting on the stool, face is covered in blood. My coach, who's Jeff Curran, famous ex-UFC fighter, he's wearing a shirt with Team Dunning on it. And it was just, he was giving me a pep talk between rounds. And I've got the gloves and the shorts from that fight up there. And I look at it all the time. And I'm just so grateful that I had that period because we have a lifetime to make money. But depending on the dream you have, you might only have a very small window. And anything athletic, it's very hard to do. 30 to 35 was tough enough. I was like, oh, I wish I'd done this when I was younger. I was in the gym with these 23-year-old, 24-year-old monsters. And I'm like, Jesus, I was the old man at the time. So it's a great lesson to me. And it's something I want to talk to my son about when he's older, is just follow your dreams when you have the opportunity. Because a lot of people say you want to just pick up everything and you just want to try something in a foreign country and live off almost nothing. Well, I couldn't do that now because I have a wife and son and two dogs. So, but when you're young, you have less baggage, less emotional and physical baggage keeping you places. So I think when you're young, it's the time to take these huge risks and really follow your heart, because the best case scenario is it's going to work and go somewhere. But the worst case scenario is going to be a huge failure. But that's still okay because you're going to learn. And I'll give you a jiu-jitsu analogy. I think it was Carlos Gracie, one of the old Gracies. He said, every time you compete, you always win. Because if you win the tournament, you win. And if you lose the tournament, you learn. And that's something beautiful about jiu-jitsu competition, is when you win, you realize that the things you've been working on, they're paying off in the stress of a competition. But if you lose, it's a great lesson. It's like, okay, I lost because I'm not good at stand-up, or I lost because I need more mat time. Or you can look at it like a positive experience. And that's one thing that I'm really big on, is I don't admire anyone who doesn't have any failures and they don't take any risks.
Yep.
I have so much more admiration for someone who's failed at a bunch of things, but he keeps his optimism. Like Winston Churchill says, so success is going from one failure to the next with no loss of enthusiasm, or something like that. And I think that's one thing that you and I love the fact that you talk about your entrepreneur journey and about all the struggles you've had and how happy you are now, because you put yourself out there and you built something and it wasn't easy. And by you sharing that message, it really resonates with other people. So that's one of the reasons I'm a huge fan of you. And we really connected because we have that same entrepreneurial spirit. It's not about success, it's about putting yourself out there and trying. Because fighting is a great example. You can do everything right, and you can just wake up one day, the day of the fight, and you're low energy, you didn't sleep well, and you get beaten by a guy that you're better than because he had a good night and you had an off night. And that's one of the reasons fighting is exciting, is because you have these huge upsets and these things can happen. And I think it's a great analogy for life, is you can do everything right, and sometimes the chips just don't fall your way. But don't lose your enthusiasm, because I'd always rather be in the arena struggling, valiantly, and even if I fail, then be on the sidelines, be like these critics that don't do anything, but they criticize the Elon Musk of the world that are trying their
Right.
best. Yeah.
Yeah, I respect anybody who puts themselves out there, and that's why I see the people we work with. There's a transformation. When they put a book out there, they get on video, and it might not look 100% professional, but if you do it for a year or 2 years or 3 years, you start to notice a big difference in the quality of your speeches, in the quality of your podcast, and the quality of your writing. And if you notice it, other people notice it. And all of a sudden, now you start to gain this confidence. And speaking of jujitsu, I just signed up recently with one goal of entering a competition. Okay. And I'm 39 years old, and it's probably because I'm turning 40 soon that I want to start to really get these bucket list items off that are like, man, if I'm sitting in my chair when I'm 90 years old, if there's anything that I would regret, this is one of them, not doing a martial arts competition. So I'm doing it, and I'm doing it to compete, because I figured if you're going to learn a skill set or a resource or a tool that is so unbelievable, you might as well test it, right? I want to put it to the test against other people. So that's why I see a lot of analogies. And I'm glad you brought up the one analogy with jujitsu and business. There are many. And what I've realized is that I always could rely upon my work ethic and my strength, right? To just battle through shit. And as I started to understand jujitsu more, I'm like, you know what? I used to think that if I went ape shit crazy in a fight, my adrenaline will allow me to get through 2 minutes worth of a fight and win. And then I realized, wow, adrenaline probably gives you right around 24 to 30% extra strength. That's great, but it's inefficient strength, which means after
Mhm.
2 minutes, you're dead. And then the competitor will destroy you. And when I look at people in jujitsu, they always say, like, I'm gonna use that anger and that fuel against you, right?
Mm.
So it makes you think about, how do I do everything the efficient way? Yeah, you might have heart and work ethic, but if you do things with bad technique, you're actually hurting yourself in the long run. When it comes to business, same thing. Yeah, I might be able to battle through a month, 6 months, 5 years of just pain and struggle. And if I'm inefficient, I will eventually slow down and then lose opportunity. So I see how there's so many things that correlate from jujitsu to business, and I guarantee that gives you a mental advantage because you look at everything in terms of technique, precision, creating good habits, taking care of your health. That all translates. Am I right?
100%. And I'll give you another one, Mike. It's decision making. In a 5 minute match with somebody at the gym, you have to make multiple decisions instantaneously. Like a lot of them, as you become more experienced, you're going to start almost subconsciously making them. But initially, you're making them as he reacts, you're reacting. So sometimes I was actually teaching 2 days ago. I teach on Wednesdays. I was teaching a class and I was talking about this different thing. And I was saying, if you do a couple of things before we hit this one move, you give the guy so much to think about, you almost overload his brain in a second and a half, and he can't react. And then boom, you hit what you're trying to hit. And it's these little subtle things you do, or like instead of if you're going to pull the guy to the left, you just push him to the right for half a fraction of a second, and then you go. So it's this misdirection and just being more efficient. It's all these different little tricks and tips. And you're right, there is so much crossover, but the idea of just making a lot of decisions, I think a lot of people have um I don't know if it's they can't commit to things, but I feel like I've been really good if I look back at my life. It's just I decide what I want to do, and then I make the decisions. So what do I have to if I want to get this, it means I have to do 10 things every day. And I just do them without even thinking. And I think if that's such a great advice for people, if you want to get somewhere and you kind of know what you have to do on a day-to-day basis to get there. So instead of trying to think about a long-term goal, think about the daily habits you have to do that over time you're going to get to your goal without even thinking about it. Just build them into the fabric of your day. And that's been something that with jujitsu is a great example too. There's so many days where I go to the gym and I'm tired and I'm not physically tired. Well, it might be I've got a 3-year-old, but it's more mentally tired. And maybe I've had a really busy day with work and my mind's racing. And I get to the gym and I'm like, man, I'm kind of tired. I half the time, I'm older now and I go at it. I go hard still. And I'll sit in my car and I'll think, man, I could recline the seat and take a 20-minute nap right now. That's kind of my energy levels. But I go in, I get changed, and I'm like, I'll just do some technique. And I do some technique, I get warm. I'm like, I'll do a couple of easy rolls. I do a couple of easy rolls, I feel good. And then one of my tough buddies is like, let's go to war. And I'm like, okay, let's go to war. So it's like you kind of build into it. But the habit of just walking the door when you don't want to, I think that's such a good habit for life. And I'm sure you're exactly the same as me, Mike. How many days do we have a bunch of phone calls that we'd rather not make, but you have to make them for business? And I think that's having those difficult conversations. I'm dealing with some really big real estate transactions that are very complex, a lot of moving parts, a lot of big egos, a lot of money at stake, and we're kind of going back and forth. And I'm in the middle of it, and I'm making these uncomfortable conversations the whole time. And I never like doing them, but now I don't even think about it; I just do them. So I think it was Tim Ferriss said the quality of your life is reflected in the amount of uncomfortable conversations you can have. I think that's good. That's
Ooh.
good news too. So many times, Mike, I'd love to know your opinion on this. So many times we think when we're young, we think if I could just get X, Y, and Z, if I could make money and do a job I love, then I can just relax and life will be easy. But now I'm older, I realize that, I know you're in great shape, you work out hard, you get after it. And it's like that's something you have to do every day. And it's that mindset of I want to spend the rest of my life till the day I die doing hard things every day so that
Yes.
I can enjoy the rest of the day because I earned it.
Yeah. Oh my God. If I miss 2 days from running, I do not feel right. And it's a reset, right? My body now needs it. But back in the day, I was not a runner. I hated running. And then I started to convince myself I'm a runner. I created a new identity. I love to run. And not only do I love to run, I get to run. I used to go on runs and just look around and be like, thank you for giving me the energy to run, right? Like I would like start to say thank you while I was running, and it would get my mind off the pain. And as time went on, I fell in love with it. So now if I don't do it, I am totally off. And it's crazy how you can convince yourself to do anything if you just keep repeating in your brain that you need to do this. So, like with you, if you do not do jujitsu, something's off. You are not the same person. This identity that's in your mind, it needs to be part of your daily routine. We did a book for a guy called, or the book was called The Perfect Average Day. And while we were doing the book, it made me think about, man, what are some of the things that I need to do every day? So when I go to sleep at night, I feel like if I didn't wake up, then I'm good, right? This is the day that it was a perfect average day. That includes getting up, maybe reading a little bit of the Bible, going for a run, doing some work, meeting with the team, growing the company, even just 1%, going for a run, getting on a dirt bike, hanging out with the family, and then having a nice Italian meal, right? So, like, I think of that's like my perfect average day. So, without it, I am not the same. So it is sometimes, once again, work, running, whether it's these are not things that are super easy, right? There's still that transformation. It's sometimes I get to the park and I'm running 5 miles and I do not want to do it. But
Yeah.
when I'm 1 mile in, I'm like, oh, this is the heaven, right?
Yeah.
It's
Just
always
gotta
the
get
devil
started.
on your shoulder saying, stay right where you're at. Don't do that. Oh, don't put yourself in that. You can take today off. You know what? You can take the whole week off. You don't need that. So, yes, it's an
That idea,
identity
Mike,
that you own.
and sorry to interrupt, but Mike, but that idea of the small things every day, that it's really nice. Like I have big dreams and goals, and in the past I had big dreams and goals, of course, like anybody else. But I've realized with a bit of age and a bit of wisdom that the real meaning of my life is found in the small things. It's in the break that just before we recorded this, I had a few work things that weren't urgent. And my son was like, Daddy, Daddy, and he's pulling me in the garden because the sun's out. And I took my shirt off and I'm walking barefoot with him. We're looking for bugs because he's 3 years old and he's in his bug phase. And it's like, man, that's when I go to bed tonight, that will be one of the things that mattered, not sending an email to get a building under contract that I'm going to get paid for in a few months just to pay the bills. Like that's necessary, but it's in the small things. And it's going to be tonight when I go to jiu-jitsu tonight and it's a late class and I'm always tired on Friday nights and I don't want to go, but I get it done and I feel so good afterwards. It's in the little things that I think is the real joy of life is found. And I consider podcasting one of them. Like you and I, my phone's off in an age there's so much distraction, there's so much coming at us. The fact that you and I can just connect and have a conversation, I really consider these kind of conversations like one of my favorite things to do. So thank you. And I think it's so great that you're spreading the message for all these people. I think as we look back, we're going to think about what was your impact on those around you, whether it's your immediate circle, your intermediate circle, or people that might listen to this that you and I both don't even know, but somehow they listen to this months down the road. I think anytime we can just put a bit of inspiration, a bit of wisdom, a bit of knowledge, a bit of just positivity, a bit of love out in the universe, that for me is a successful life. So the older I get, it's a combination of trying to maximize my own selfish goals, the things that I want to do for myself, and also just trying to be a good member of the community and our circle that we live in. So that's so cool the way you and I connected. We actually connected through, I think it was Nick Lamagna.
Nick LaMagna,
Through
another
yeah, he's
jujitsu maniac.
ex
Yeah.
great guy. We connect through him, and he's another one where he's always introducing me to people. And we met originally online. We never met in person. We just did a seminar together in Florida. We were training with Marcelo Garcia out there. So it's so cool where you have these connections where you meet people from different parts of the country that have your same mindset. And then you never know. Months later, you might be on the jiu-jitsu mats with him. You might be having a nice dinner. But it's just those connections. And I think we talk a lot about the negatives of technology, but one of the huge positives is the ability to do this, just to connect people. And I'll say this to anyone listening who's struggling, or shoot me a message. I'm going to give away a bunch of copies of my book. I'm just sending them out to people. Just shoot me a message, and if you ever need it, you're going through tough times. I'm here, man. I want to just put that out there because I know a lot of people are struggling. And that's one of the things I do want to touch on, Mike, is when a couple of generations ago, I think in California, I was just reading this, a professor's salary was a third of the price of a house in California. And today it's something like a 40th of the price of a house. So the cost of buying a house has increased, has outpaced the price of wage growth so much. It's just like, how are people even going to get on the property ladder? Are we going to be a nation of renters? I do worry about a lot of the next generation and all the problems we're seeing. So one message that I'm trying to get with writing the book and talking to you and just having these kind of conversations is no one's coming to save us. And having a bit of knowledge with financial literacy is so important. So if the only thing you get from this, listen, if you buy the book and you read it and you get something, I'll be so happy. But if the only thing you get from this is just to, hey, I'm going to try and think a bit more about money and what it means, and I'm going to try and make some decisions and try and learn things that my future self in 10 years will be really grateful for, then that's a win. So I really just want to spread that message because I think you and I both share we share the one, like, listen, I think you and I both enjoy, buying things for ourselves and having money and freedom and using it like regular people, but like in terms to buy things. But I think the idea of money as freedom is something that really needs to be emphasized, because a lot of people, they do it the wrong way. They do something they hate for decades thinking they're going to be happy, whereas they should do something now to give them freedom in the future so they can do something they love. And I think it's society is so weird, isn't it? We have these expectations when you go to school, and now schools are becoming a joke in a lot of states. They're teaching all this stuff that you don't need to know, and then do a career you hate to pay for a mortgage, to be in a marriage you don't like. And just so many people just I've got friends that are divorced and they got married when they're young, and they said, I said, why did you marry your ex-wife? You had nothing in common. You weren't a good match. She was like, that's what I was just, it was expected of me, like they had these expectations. So I think that we're kind of living through this wild time of change. Seems that in so many ways, I think America is such a great country. I'm an immigrant. I'm so proud of the opportunities here, but we seem very split as a country on the future direction of where the country is going to go. And so I think we're kind of living through that, and it's our duty to talk about the important things that we should be focusing on. And one of them is, no one's coming to save us. You can't rely on government handouts, or there's probably going to be some type of universal basic income coming, but it's going to be a fraction of what it costs to live in most metropolitan areas. So just try and think about getting some financial education so you're not reliant on other people. Because if there's one thing I don't want to be, it's reliant on anybody.
Damn right. Damn right. Yeah. So you talk about freedom. I mean, when you have money, you have options. And that means what you eat, where you go, what you do throughout the day. You are not tied to anything or anybody, really, right? Because in 2020, we saw how if you don't take this drug, you can't work here anymore. Well, if I don't want to do something, right, I'm not going to do it. And you have autonomy over your life if you have the ability to create your own cash flow and your own resources. So that's why real estate's unbelievable, because number one, you get really well versed in wealth creation. You get around other people who have the same mentality, though, right? And their belief systems rub off on you about wealth creation, about how to look at the game of life as like a chessboard. And so you could start to really plant the seeds, not only just for your life, but like you have 2 kids. You
Oh,
start to plant the seeds
yeah.
for what's that?
Oh, one. Second one's hopefully soon.
Oh, okay. So just one.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I'm ahead of the game. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
so you're planting seeds not just for you, but for the following generations, right? And somebody in your family, I think it's Ed Milet that says it best. Somebody has to break the cycle, and that might be, investing in real estate for the first. You might be the first person to get into multifamily, self storage, mobile home parks, or single family investing in your entire family, right? And it might be hard in the beginning. And there's that great quote: do what's hard and your life will be easy. Do what's easy and your life will be hard. And I always think about that because maybe in the beginning, you might not see a lot of success right away, but exponentially it starts to build up. One unit turns into 5, turns into 15, turns into 20, and it just snowballs. And all of a sudden, people look at you and say, shit, man, if I would have just done what you did 15 years ago, I would be set right now. So it's a long game, and if it's delayed gratification is a part of it, but it doesn't mean you have to be in pain your whole life. You get to love waking up and going after that next building, or slaying that next dragon. To me, it's fun. Maybe it's not for everybody, but if you start early, it does serve you as time goes on. And therefore, when you're 55, 60, 70 years old, you have this body of work that's undeniable.
I love the idea of I think there's a real estate phrase. The best time to buy real estate is 20 years ago. The second best time is today. And it's just, yeah, of course, like, everyone, I wish I bought a whole bunch of Bitcoin in 2014, but I didn't,
Bingo.
but I still think it's going to do well today. So it's just a great reminder that lamenting on the past is not going to get you anywhere. But sometimes, even I'll give you a current example. I bought the place that we're talking about nearly 2 years ago, And then I moved a year. We did about a 6 month rehab. And I remember when I bought it, rates had just gone up for primary residences from about 3.5 to 5.5. And I remember I got the 5.5 rate and I'm like, I felt like a dummy. And I'm like, crap, I missed these really low rates. So I get this 5.5 arm for this building. And now that exact same product is at 8.25 even. So like now my friends like, geez, you got 5.5. You're so lucky, you know. So it's like that's the benefit of hindsight. Things move quickly. So that's a really, really great reminder. I always think whenever you come to decisions, especially big decisions, and if you're kind of on the fence about it, the easiest way that you can answer it easily is you say, what would my future self want me to do? So
Oh,
like
that's good.
give yourself a longer time horizon. You don't have to make the decision today. Think in 10 years, which of these two paths of my life do I want to make? And I love the fact you mentioned something earlier about regrets, being older with regret. And I love that idea. That was why I quit my sort of gave my company and I started fighting is because I saw in my mind's eye, I saw this path of me like just keep on in finance and make all this money and have all this external success and maybe a huge house with grandkids at my feet one day when I'm older. And I'd have this thing in my head. I'll be sitting in my chair and everyone would look at me like Lawrence was such a success. And I'll be sitting in there thinking, well, I'm not a success because I had that dream and I never took it. I never took the risk. I never took the financial hit to follow my heart with the fighting. And that's one thing I'm so proud of myself is once you've done that once, you always have the courage to do it again. Because like I said earlier, the worst case scenario is you take the risk and it doesn't work out. That's okay. You're gonna learn and you'll be proud of yourself for doing it. But the best case scenario is that it was an amazing experience. And ultimately, I'm just finishing this book. It's called With the End in Mind, and the author's name's Catherine Maddox, and I'm actually reading it for the second time. And it's such a great book because she's a hospice nurse, and it's all these short little chapters on people dying. Different, and some of them are really tragic stories. And she's dealing with, these long couples who got married when they're young, and then one of them's dying of cancer, and she's trying to help the other one deal with it. And sometimes these people want to be lied to by their significant other because they can't mentally deal with dying. It's a fascinating book on death because when you think about when people at the end of their life, the truth really comes out. They don't care about prestige and titles and status and money. When all's said and done, what matters? And one of the biggest things that comes up is, I wished I'd live a life truer to me and not what society or my friends and family expected of me. That's a huge one. Another one that keeps coming up, this theme of, man, I wish I'd work less because I didn't love what I was doing. And so
Oh,
you and I would flip that and say, well, why don't you just do something you love what you're doing? Then you're never going to have that regret. Another one is like, I wish I'd spent more time with the people that I care about. And so I think about that now. It's like I don't think it's a morbid thought at all. I think about death all the time in the stoic sense of I don't want to be dying with regret. Sometimes I joke, 'cause I'm 45 and I feel like I'm living like I'm 85 or 95. I have that mindset where I think about it all the time. And I'll give you one, Mike, because you just started jujitsu and you're very passionate. There's going to be a day, brother. It'll be the last time you and I go on the mat to roll. Now, we don't know if it's going to be next week or in 15 years from now. We don't know. So one thing about my dog passing away after 14 years, I really had that thought where I loved him and we had such a great time, so many great memories over the years together. But I wish I'd been a bit more present with him at the end of his life. I was kind of dealing with a lot with work and my son, and a few times I kind of brushed him off. And it might seem a small thing to people listening, but it's a great realization that you don't know when the last time you do anything is, when the last time you see a family member or a good friend. You never know. Life is tenuous, and I've lost a bunch of people I know the last few years. It's crazy how as you get older, it seems like a lot of people suddenly are no longer with us. So I try and have that philosophy is every time you do something, try to remember this could be the last time I do it. And it just makes you appreciate it so much more. So I'll talk about MMA for a second. My last MMA fight, I knew I was going to retire. I didn't tell my coaches I wanted to wait till after. And luckily the fight went well. But I remember every single thing. Like the music came out for my walkout. My coach is like, let's go, champ. And I said, Coach, give me a second. And I just wanted to listen to music for a couple of seconds. And then the walkout and the fight itself, I remember every single part of that fight. Luckily, I won a decision. And then after the celebrations, I remember everything. And then I spoke to my coaches and I told them, thank you for everything. I'm done. And I thought, wow, because I only did that because I knew it was the last time. Every other fight, the memory is just this blur of emotions and anxiety and anticipation and either happiness or disappointment, depending on the result. But I wasn't really present because it was just so overwhelming. And I think about that all the time, Mike. I think I want to be present for everything because when all's said and done, I just want to have as many memories and moments like that I can really think about. and be present, be with people I love or doing things that I love doing. So just having that stoic mindset of you never know when the last time you do this again is. And it's a really good reminder to enjoy today. Because when I was young, I used to think about, sorry for the long rant, but when I was
No,
young, I used
love
to think
this.
if you tick the box, you'll be happy. And then I realized that people like you and I, Mike, we're entrepreneurs. We're always gonna our goals are gonna expand, hopefully with our success, and we're always gonna be chasing things, which is good. That's the natural life of an entrepreneur who's growing. And humans are always happiest not when you arrive, but when you have improvement, when you're growing.
Mhm.
So now I realize that I want to be happy that I'm not where I want to be in every metric of my life. I want to be trying to improve them all, whether it's work, whether it's I'm working on my second book. Hopefully, I'm going to tell you about that very soon. My relationship with my son, my jujitsu career, like all the different things that I'm passionate about. I want to be trying to improve in all of them, but I don't want to link my happiness to it. I want to be happy knowing that I'm going to get there one day, hopefully in many, many years. I want to stretch out my achievements because I know that if I get too much success early on, it's going to be a bit of a come down. That's human nature. So it's just a real interesting mind shift I've had, even in the last like year or two. It's been crazy how I've just shifted my mindset and I'm doing the same things that I always did, but I'm so much happier and more present as I do them. And I think that's a great message to anyone that's listening who's going through tough times is it's like if you're in a really bad relationship and it's going south and you're in an awful breakup and you're miserable, it's like, listen, I know it sucks right now, but when you meet your soulmate, hopefully in a year or two, you'll be so happy for this. And it's the same when I made all the financial mistakes and I couldn't go back in the trading floor because the business model left. And I thought, shit, I had to do soul searching, I got to start a new career in real estate. Did the first year in real estate, was it fun? No. I made in that first year what I could make in one good day trading. It sucked. But I had the mindset that I wasn't trying to make money that year. I was trying to learn everything I could about the business. I was trying to make connections. And that paid off. And now when I look back 10 years later, I am so glad that I couldn't go back on the trading floor because I grew so much as a person, my character, and the people I met. But at the time, it sucked. So it's just such a good, I think it's such a positive message because a lot of people are struggling right now. But it's like, it's hard to imagine. But I promise you, in 5, 10 years, this could be the best thing that ever happened to you. But you're only going to get that benefit from hindsight in the future. So I just find that such a positive message to share with people.
Damn straight. Being present. That's an evergreen lesson for anything because when you are in the moment, you can really focus on what that moment is trying to teach you, I think. And if it's a great moment, maybe you enjoy it, right? You always be have a little bit more gratitude in those moments of joy and success. But I've realized that the more present I am in the dark moments where things are not going right, I'm always asking myself, what is this moment trying to teach me? What am I supposed to
Mm.
do with this pain and this anguish and this hurt? Because rather than focus on and ignore the pain and just focus on maybe the future, use this pain or learn from it and apply it accordingly. So I've realized, and maybe this is where you started to see it, but when I got my money right, and I had a little bit more time to think about my destiny, legacy, all the things that I wanted to build, it only came after I got my money right, really. So if you want to become more present, in my opinion, you have to get your money right. Therefore, you have the time and the freedom and all the blessings that gives you to really do a lot of introspection. And if you're worried about going from corporate or job to corporate job or from job to job that you hate, right? You're never in the moment. You're always thinking about how can I get to 3 o'clock? How can I get to 5 o'clock? You're always thinking about whenever you can go home from work rather than be there in every aspect of work. And if, you adopt what Alan Watts says, when you see no difference between work and play, that's when you're a success. So I'm with you on that, man.
I love that. It's like
What?
Maslow's hierarchy of needs. At the bottom is just all the basic things you need to function, and that's money. If you're doing something you hate just to scratch and survive and pay the bills and barely pay your rent and pay back credit card bills, and you're trying to get food for your kids, you don't have any mental energy left to think about the things that bring you happiness. But if you can get the bottom of the basic needs met, then you can work on things that make you really flourish and have a good life. And ultimately, that's what I think, you and I and hopefully everyone listening wants. We want to maximize our human experience. So you have to do the right things and cover the basics so that you can really decide, what you want to do with your life. And I think the one thing about you, I'm pretty sure in 5, 10 years, I think you and I will be doing things that we have no idea now that are even out there. But I know it's just a natural evolution and growth. We're going to find things, we're going to find new passions, we're going to follow them. But but that's only going to come because we're doing the right things today. So I'm really glad you said that, because that's such a wonderful lesson.
Damn right. Self-actualize, guys. If you're listening out there, you're watching this, make sure you do everything in your power to self-actualize, because that's the real reward. And you said it best with 5, 10 years from now. I mean, think about AI and all the craziness that's going to happen in this world. If you envision the next 50 years of your life, your vision's too small. Think about the next 5 years, right? Because the world's going to change so much. And if you self-actualize, I think that no matter what happens, you can pivot and adjust and become extremely resourceful and actually obtain many more rewards than what you're thinking right now in your mind. So I'm with you, man. Guys, check out his book, The Forgotten Asset Class. It's on Amazon. I think it's all 5 stars. Yeah, 5 stars on Amazon. So highly recommend it. It became a bestseller, I think, couple weeks ago, somewhere in there, a couple months ago. I'm not exactly sure. But guys, check out his book. Do you have any other website or social media channel that you're quite active you recommend to our audience?
Yeah, just my name, Lawrence Dunning, on Instagram and LinkedIn. I'm pretty active. And Mike, I just want to say thank you so much. Thank you for the help. Anyone out there that has, a lot of people I know have the dream or the idea, like, I'd really like to write a book one day, but they don't really know how to get started. Maybe they have a bit of, anxiety about putting themselves out there, or a bit of imposter syndrome. Talk to Mike, because like he said, even just the idea of just getting your thoughts down, it's so good for clarification. It will open up all these different opportunities. I've already been asked to speak in an event. I do a lot of podcasts and things, but I don't do too much in person. So that's cool. I'm going to do a real estate event soon. And you never know the people you're going to affect. But that's all icing on the cake. The real thing is just clarifying your thoughts and doing something that you want to do, right? Because if you don't want to go to your grave with all these ideas and books inside you, and you never put the effort. And you give a really great service from start to finish, Mike, about how to do it, how to promote it, how to publish it. There's so many things where I had no clue. I haven't written a book, and now I'm working on number 2, and I'm already so excited because I know a little bit about how to do it. And one thing we started this with, Mike, if I can just say, you talked about getting better as you do things. And I think so many people, when it comes to writing a book, they want to write. For me, this was me for years. You want to write the perfect book, but the second book can be better than the first, and the third book can be better than the second. Just get it out there. Just do it. There's genius. I think Goethe said it. There's genius and power in just starting something. So I'm just trying to give you a shout out, because you've been so awesome, and like, you really are such a good motivator and encourager, that the whole step of the way for this. So you make the process, I don't want to say easy, but you make it kind of easy. you're you're really good at what you do. Your team is awesome. They're all the people I spoke to and dealt with, which are so professional and so easy to work with. So thank you so much for your brother. I really, really appreciate you.
Yeah, it's an honor to work with you, man. We love you. Yeah, Ashley always talked very highly of you, and you followed the instructions and our recommendations, and that's why we loved working with you. And so whenever you're ready for book number 2, we're here for you. But you said
Thank
something
you.
there I just want to touch on. A lot of people are waiting for that perfect moment, that permission to write a book, or that perfect sentence, paragraph, whatever. But if you apply the laws of physics, you to business, you realize that an object in motion stays in motion. An object at rest stays at rest. So if you are sitting there waiting, nothing's happening. And you get better as you go forward. Therefore, you need to put things in motion. And your character is formed whenever, number one, it's in motion, but whenever you hit adversity. So when you start to notice what you can and can't do, or maybe where you made a mistake, or maybe, oh, I got to do that a little bit better in book number 2, that's whenever your true character is developed. So your character, in my opinion, is never developed if you sit there and you're waiting for everything to be perfect, because it's never going to be. So glad you said that, man. Guys, pick up his book. It's an honor to work with you. And if you guys have any questions when it comes to real estate, he's the guy. He's in Indiana. And if you are looking to roll with somebody, I can't wait to say that hey, I'm going to come to Indiana and roll with you someday. I've never been able to say that to anybody in Indiana. So expect that pretty damn soon. Okay.
I can't wait. I'm in Chicago too. I've got 2 different gyms, but we'll
Oh,
definitely make it happen one day. I can't wait.
oh, wait, you're not in Indiana anymore.
I live in Indiana, but it's just across the border. So I basically have a gym in Chicago, gym in Indiana, 2 gyms. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. So I might be in Chicago. Looks like most likely first week of September. So maybe
Let's
that's the
make it
time.
happen. Let's make it
Okay.
happen, brother. Thank you so much, Mike. It was an honor and a pleasure.
Yeah, appreciate it, man. Remember, guys, $1 million book will lead to $1 million life. Right on. And I have to say this because this is the first jujitsu guest. Don't forget OS. Am I using it right? OS.
Us.
All righty.